Good afternoon. I am Shreyasi Pal. I am Associate Professor at the BMS School of Architecture, Yelahanka, Bangalore. We are proud to be a NAC accredited and an NIRF ranked independent architectural college, part of the esteemed BMS Educational Trust. Today's session is part of our Research Dialogue series, an initiative dedicated to cultivating a robust research culture within the architecture and allied academic communities. These seminars aim to foster knowledge exchange and collaborative learning, and we are delighted to have participants from across India joining us. Your active engagement is instrumental to the success of this initiative, and we encourage you to share your insights throughout the session in the chat box. For today's event, we have the privilege of hosting a distinguished speaker, Dr. Shambhavi Mishra, whose extensive expertise and academic contributions make her a leading voice in the fields of statistics and biostatistics. I now invite our esteemed director, Dr. Shaila Bantunur, to formally welcome her.
Thank you, Shreyasi. Hi, Dr. Shambhavi. Welcome to BMS School of Architecture, Yelahanka, virtually, I should say. Otherwise, we always wanted to have these sessions in person. Just to enjoy the green campus, also the nice ambience, and it always, one-on-one is always good. But still, however, because of COVID and all those things, we started this online series, especially the research one. Just to give you a background, is like every month we are doing this kind of a research dialogue series, and Shreyasi is coordinating this kind of a series, and also we could see that the researchers are not only from only architecture background, but also the resource persons especially. We wanted to see from various different background, because when we talk about research, a lot of integration is required, a lot of tools are required, different methods we may adopt even for architecture as well. So that's the reason, like this time we have again a unique resource person who is talking about somebody who is not from architecture, but still, the method or using the SPSS is going to be really helpful. In fact, I remember when we were most of in architecture research is more of a qualitative. So even I do faced when I had a part of my research as a part of qualitative. So that time I remember the SPSS was one where, like whole 1 week we have attended this, and it was very, very helpful. The reason behind is in especially in qualitative research, where we need a lot of tools to justify in a quantitative way. So in this case, these kind of, especially the statistics is very, very important, is what my personal opinion. And most of the time, where do we face the challenges is, we know the statistics, we may be knowing a lot of tests and all those things, P test, Q test, ANOVA test, and all those tests. But we don't know how we can apply in what are the situations where this test is more. Application of these tests is where especially we do have a lot of challenges. So with this, I'm sure this session will be helpful for all of us, and especially the faculties and the people who are going to attend, whose research is focused on more of a qualitative. And definitely, I think SPSS is a one tool where it is going to help. And with it, I once again welcome Shambhavi, and if possible, wanted to host you in person also to our campus. Let's see how the time permits. But it's a good to have you here for this wonderful session. Thank you. Shreyasi, you can take it.
Yeah. So let me quickly introduce our guest resource person today. Dr. Shambhavi Mishra has been an assistant professor in the Department of Statistics at the University of Lucknow since 2016. With a career marked by excellence, she previously served as a statistical fellow in the Department of Biostatistics and Health Informatics at SGPGI Lucknow. Dr. Mishra holds a master's in statistics from Lucknow University and has further enriched her career, contributing to notable projects, including one at King George's Medical University. Her role as a biostatistician and data analyst for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded Community Empowerment Lab exemplifies her dedication to impactful research. Her specializations include survey sampling, multivariate analysis, analysis of variance, and design of experiments. Dr. Mishra's academic portfolio boasts over 30 research publications, 41 invited lectures, 14 paper presentations at national and international conferences, and participation in more than 20 workshops and FDPs, along with the organization of 3 workshops. She has been honored with the Best Paper Award under the Uddipan Boost scheme for 5 consecutive years by the University of Lucknow, which is a testament to her remarkable contributions to her field. Dr. Mishra's international presence is equally noteworthy. She has represented India twice at the World Health Organization's Data Analysis Meet in Geneva and once at the Stanford School of Medicine, Stanford University, USA. Her technical expertise is data analysis using software such as SPSS, R, and Stata, of which further solidifies her reputation as an exceptional trainer and educator. Today's session, based on participant request, will delve into Introduction to SPSS. It is a topic of immense relevance to researchers across disciplines. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Mishra to BMSSA and to this seminar series. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shreyasi, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much, Madam Dr. Shaila. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the college for giving me this opportunity to interact. However, I do believe that it's very important that we do meet, and there isn't any replacement of physical interactions and when we do an offline sessions. But yes, due to COVID, it has, I would say, it has become easier that with just a very short notice we can have these kind of research webinars and lectures. Yeah, it has some negative aspects, but I think the positives are much more. So it's good that sitting here in Lucknow, I can talk to all of you in Bangalore. I have been to the place before and it's a very beautiful city. I do wish to visit again and hopefully we'll be meeting very soon. So I would like to share my screen before I start my talk today. And as discussed with Shreyasi, we do have participants who are from various backgrounds, non-architecture as well. So I would not be, is my screen visible? I could just have a word of confirmation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So is the presentation also visible?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, since we have participants from various streams that are non-statistics, so I would not be like going into the details of statistics. So, since it's a 90-minute talk, so the way I would like to go about this talk is that for about 30 minutes, I would be very briefly telling you all about this software as to why is SPSS important, why do we need to study the software. I think Dr. Shaila madam has very clearly illustrated that we all know about different kinds of tests that are available like t-test, ANOVA and all those things. But what is very important here for all of you, especially those who are from non-statistics background, is to understand when a particular test is to be applied, because it's very simple. You just go into Google and type t-test and you get so many tutorials and videos and all those things that anybody could maybe in 5-10 minutes understand how are we going to apply. But when should we apply that particular test and what are the assumptions that should be checked before any statistical test is applied, that is very important. And that knowledge, if everybody has, I think it's nothing in quantitative research is difficult. And I have been I have previous exposures where I have given lectures to various researchers from architecture background as well. I have had many talks at SPA Delhi. I have also had a talk at MNIT Bhopal. So I have had discussions with people from architecture background as well, and I do understand how important it is now to properly understand which tool, which test, and where it should be applied. So, in my talk today, since this is just a one session, and in one session for 90 minutes, it's extremely difficult to sort of go into the details of the software. and the tests, of course. But what I will be focusing on is at least I could give you a brief sensitization since it's an introductory lecture. So my aim is to sensitize all of you about different processes that are available in SPSS. How can we procure the software? What are the requirements that your system should have before you start working? And what are the possible options that you can get in the software? So this is all that we would be, and yes, I do have a data set. So in the like for half an hour, I'll be giving you some brief about the software, and the second half of my lecture would be like a hands-on session where I would uh, show you some statistical analysis that could be done in the software, so that whenever you come across this software, or if you're able to download this software and use it, at least you all are able to do some statistical analysis using the software. So SPSS, as the name suggests, yeah. So before I start with SPSS, I think we all, I mean, all of you who have joined here, at least know the importance of statistics. Nowadays, I think the world is moving into data-driven decision making, and we have to have evidence by which we are able to make any decisions. And in order to gather that evidence, in order to gather, in order to take decisions, we need to have proper data. And on the basis of that data, you need to perform statistical analysis that can provide you with solid evidence that can help you in decision making. I mean, I'm really fortunate that I have been, working in this area, because initially when I studied statistics and when I took statistics way back like a decade ago, I did not realize at that time the importance and the application of the subject. But nowadays, any stream, any research area, any stream you talk about, there is use of statistics. I mean, we do have a linguistics department in our university as well. I mean, in linguistics, Sanskrit, Hindi, history, any department you name, if we go for research in that area, we do need evidence, and that evidence can only be, given if you properly apply statistical analysis. So, I mean, it's extremely important nowadays to be statistically literate. So I think all of you do understand that. There are various applications of the subject. I'm not going into the details. We all already know about it. Yeah. Before I go into talking about the software, I think this is very important, which everybody of you should understand. Broadly, when we talk about the statistics, we divide it into two sections, that is, descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And whenever we just talk about the frequency distributions, mean, median, mode, all these types of measures, they come under descriptive statistics. That is, they just describe, they help in description of your data. But whenever we go into a step ahead, that is called inferential statistics, wherein we try to draw inferences on the basis of our sample. So maybe I could explain this to all of you in in another way, that whenever we go to a doctor for a checkup, what happens? I mean, even if we're having a fever, the doctor doesn't give you medicine, immediately. He might give you a paracetamol or something, but he won't properly prescribe you antibiotics or anything until unless the doctor gets certain tests done. Whenever we go in for any medication or any treatment, the first thing that a medical practitioner does is gives you a series of tests, and wherein you have to give in your blood, maybe your x-ray and all those things, and after the reports come, only then the doctor prescribes you medicine related to your disease. Similar is the case with descriptive and inferential statistics. Whenever we have a data, the first thing that we do to a data is doing very basic analysis, finding out the mean, the distribution, what is whether your data has outliers or not. And after you have the idea about the description of the data, on the basis of the results, we decide which particular test is to be applied. Just as Director Madam said that there is a t-test, there is ANOVA. So t-test is only applied when your data is from a normal distribution. Otherwise, we apply a non-parametric test. So to decide on all that, we need to first apply descriptive statistics, and then on the basis of the results, we apply inferential statistics. So broadly, statistics is divided into two major sections. In today's lecture, I would be only focusing on descriptive statistics because, as I said, that I mean, 90 minutes is not a much time for all that. But maybe later on, if we do have series of lectures or maybe a workshop sort of, then maybe we can go into details of inferential. So today we will be only focusing on how to describe our data. That is just a very basic analysis that we get, or we perform when we get our data. Any data that any data which you need to analyze, the first thing that you do to that data is doing descriptive statistics. All right. Yeah, so moving to the software that we will be focusing on today, that is statistical packages for the social sciences, SPSS. Now, it was released way back in the year 1968, so it is not a new software, but the latest version of the software is SPSS 30, which was launched in September 2024. So, a couple of months back, the latest version of the software was launched. And very recently, in the year 2009, SPSS has been acquired by the IBM. So, the software is a sole property of the IBM. I'm sure everybody knows about IBM. Now, it is an expensive software, and it should only be used when you have a licensed version of the software. Now, when I say that you have a licensed version of the software, I mean that your institution should have a licensed version of the software. Now, why am I emphasizing on this? Because nowadays there are many softwares which are freely available. Like, I mean, I'm sure if some of you who have been, doing statistical analysis or maybe have heard about statistical analysis, I'm sure you would have heard about R software. There is one software which is R software, that is open source and free of cost software. You can easily download it from the internet and you can start working. But that is not the case with SPSS. When you go and download it, I mean, like if you all have internet access, I would not say that do it right now, because then you will not be able to listen to my lecture. But maybe you can note it down somewhere, and or maybe take screenshots, and later on you can download it. So if you go into the IBM website, then from the IBM website you can download SPSS software, and you will be able to download a trial version of the software. Sometimes they give you a 14-day trial. I mean, of late they are giving a 14-day trial, which I have heard from my students. But initially it was like a 21-day trial, so I'm not very sure. But like as per my understanding, it's a 14-day trial version that you get from the internet. But after 14 days you will not be able to do any analysis. So it is only for 14 days, and then the outputs will, you will not be able to get the outputs. But if you want to have a permanent software, then you should purchase this software. It is like if an institution purchases it, then under the academic the academic license is not very expensive. Single user is about 50-60,000 maybe. And if you go in for a lab, like a 20 user or 30 user, then there are various like offers that they give. I'm not very sure. But uh, if any of you, like, this is really important, if any of you write about this software in your research paper, if you are using this software, then please be sure that your institution, the parent institution from where you are affiliated with, has the licensed version of the software. There are many students here in, like, I'll give you example of here in Lucknow. Like, our university has 40 user license software, because we do have a lab, and in our lab all the students, they practice on SPSS, so we have a 40 user license. But there are like various other colleges and institutions that do not have the licensed version. So whenever there is students, they work on SPSS, and suppose they have to submit their PhD thesis or a research paper, then they make sure that either they are they are procuring a certificate from our department that the like particular student was allowed to work on the software or in the lab, or maybe they are acknowledging the department somewhere in the thesis or the research paper, because pirated versions are available everywhere. But if you are using, because since it is a paid software, so if you are using this software, be sure that your institution or anybody who is working with you on this research, their institution has a licensed version of the. Now, why is SPSS very popular? Because, like, just a couple of minutes ago, I said that there is an R software which is free of cost. So, you people might have this question that why not use R and why use SPSS? The biggest reason for the popularity of SPSS software is its graphic user interface. I will show it to you maybe in 15 minutes from now. The interface of the software is very easy. Number one, easy to understand. And number two, it is all menu driven. So, unlike R or Python or different other softwares which people are using, in all these softwares, you have to properly write the command, right? You have to memorize the syntax and you have to write the commands. But in SPSS, you have an option. Either you can choose to write the commands. In SPSS also, there is an option of writing the syntax. So either you choose to write the syntax in SPSS, and just in case if you are not writing the syntax, then it's very easy to go into the menu, and from the menu you can easily select the options for the particular analysis that you want to do, and you can go about with the analysis. So its interface is very simple and easy to understand, and that is the reason why particularly SPSS software is very popular amongst people who are from non-statistics background as well. Now the SPSS graphic user interface has two windows. One is called the data view and the other is called the variable view. Now, this is the SPSS interface. If you could see on the screen, the image on the top is your SPSS data editor window. Now, in this data editor window, this is your data set where we do the analysis. These are all the different rows where we have data. Then we have different variables, and there is a menu from which you can select different options that are available in SPS. So this first figure or first screenshot, these are actually the screenshots of SPSS. So the first screenshot is your data editor window, where you can enter the data and from where you can perform different analysis. This window on the right, this is your graphics. Whenever we do any analysis, we we can make graphs in SPSS. So these are the graphs. I will show you a few graphs when we do analysis on SPSS, and then maybe you will understand it better. The last image is of the output that we have. whenever you run any analysis, we do get an output. So the image that is at the bottom is your output window. So in SPSS, we have a data editor window, we have a graph output, and we also have an output window. Okay. When we do the analysis, I will show all this to you in detail. Now, in SPSS, before I discuss about the outputs in detail, there is this SPSS modeler, which is also an add-on SPSS analysis tool. This is also a paid software, and whenever we buy this software SPSS, then in the base version we do not get this modeler. This is one step ahead. And why is this modeler important? Very recently, I think many of you must have heard about predictive modeling, yeah, data mining, okay, or machine learning techniques. All of this is very easily possible using SPSS model. It is slightly, more expensive than the base SPSS, but it has extensive build-up of different advanced modeling, predictive modeling techniques. So, I mean, I'm just giving you an idea so that later on, whenever you come across these softwares or these terms, at least you are able to understand. So, one is IBM SPSS modeler, which is predominantly useful for machine learning techniques and predictive modeling. Then there is this SPSS modeler for cloud pack. Now, this is basically when we have very large data. I mean, many of you would, like most of you would already know that nowadays the data set is all saved into the cloud. We have huge magnitude of like high dimensional data, which are all cloud based. So whenever we need to do any analysis on that cloud based data sets, then for that there is SPSS modeler in Cloud Pack also, which is used for AI platforms, etc. So this is again one add-on module for SPSS. Then there is this collaboration and deployment services. This is basically this basically provides you a solution, these services for predictive analytics only. So this is also used for advanced analysis. This is called IBM SPSS Collaboration and Deployment Services. One more very important add-on module of SPSS is called SPSS AMOS. Now, AMOS stands for Analysis of Moment Structure. This IBM SPSS AMOS is useful whenever we have to perform structural equation modeling. Now, what is SEM? I think, I'm assuming that some of you must have heard about the term regression, right? So, whenever we go in for a dependent and independent relationship between multiple variables, then we do perform regression analysis. So, structural equation modeling is one step ahead of regression. It is basically path analysis, and I think I have used SEM a lot of times for management data, but I am sure that this technique might also be useful for architecture data as well. I'm sure, because whenever we have a multivariate data, which is many variables, and there is some sort of interrelationship between these variables, then, in order to analyze and to understand the relationship, we perform a structural equation modeling, which is SEM, and that SEM can be performed using IBM SPSS AMOS. Very useful software. Again, it is a paid software, and whenever we purchase a base SPSS, we don't get this software. So you need to go into an add-on module in order to get the access to this AMOS. There is one more SPSS family, SPSS software family, which is called SPSS Predictive Analytics Enterprise. This is somewhat similar to modular, but I would say this is dominantly useful for predictive analysis. So, different types of predictive analytics modeling, we can use this family of software, which is called SPSS Predictive Analytics Enterprise. Now, Madam Director, Madam was very like she was very she had very briefly mentioned about qualitative analysis also. I'm sure nowadays, along with quantitative analysis, qualitative is also useful and is very important. In fact, we are all moving towards mixed method research now. I think many of you must have heard about it. For mixed method research, we need to use both quantitative as well as qualitative techniques. Text analytics is one such SPSS family of software which is very useful for qualitative data analysis. I think you all have must have heard about sentiment analysis or word cloud and natural language processing. All these things can be very nicely performed using text analytics software. I think one of the examples of this text analytics software is that these political parties, whenever their leaders they go into any any gathering, and whenever they deliver their lectures, deliver their speeches, then all their speeches are properly analyzed. I mean, they not only analyze their leader's speech, but they also analyze, speeches of other leaders from other political parties as well. And what all is done in this analysis? The basic purpose of that analysis is which particular word was repeatedly used, right? What was the focus of that speech? Whether it was primarily focusing on unemployment, or whether it was primarily focusing on reservation policy. So this is one of many uses of text analytics software. Whenever any leader, or maybe any diplomat, they give any speeches or lectures, it's properly analyzed as to which word was repeatedly used, what was the focus of the talk. One of the uses of text analytics is sentiment analysis, to find out, like whenever there's any text written or any story written, then what was the uh, where was it focusing on, what was its gist. So all of that could be found out, could be understood when we go in for a when we go in for text analytics. So this is dominantly used when we go for a qualitative data analysis. So this is one use of SPSS family of software, that is text analytics. These are some of the books that are very commonly used to understand data analysis using SPSS. All these books can be downloaded from the net, they are free. My preference is first and second. The third and fourth books are also very good, but I would rather say that in the first and the second one, the first one, that is by the Sage publisher by Andy Field, and the second one is Chapman and Hall, CRC Press. Both these books, the first and the second one, very nicely they have illustrated different uh, statistical tools and techniques that could be performed using SPSS software. So any of the two books you can download, they are freely available. And just in case you are not able to download, Shreyasi can send me a mail. I would be very happy to send the PDFs of these books. In both of these books, step by step, like they have very nicely written the steps for all the statistical techniques along with the screenshots. So you just take any of these books as your handbook, and you can start working with statistical analysis using SPSS. So these are some of the books that you can refer to. So that's all from my side about the basics of SPSS. I hope I have been able to explain to you about some basics about the software. So before we move to the interface of the software, I would like to break for maybe 2 minutes and just open the floor for all of you for any questions or any doubts that you have regarding whatever has been discussed with you till now. Any doubts?
Participants, you can unmute yourself because it is enabled for everyone. You can unmute and speak, or you can put your questions in the chat box.
Hmm. Shambhavi, I just want to know because in one of the slide you mentioned that if the particular researcher has used any statistical analysis using SPSS, he has to
Yes,
mention about the source or like the proper acknowledgement. But
yes.
what if like some people maybe like they must have used the pirated and all that, because I have seen a lot of
Hmm.
papers where they have used SPSS, and then you have rightly mentioned buying those softwares is really difficult. Not all the
Yes,
institutions will be having that. So in
yes.
that case, how do they manage, like is there any legal action or something? What kind of a protocols the researcher has to take care, or or if he does it, then how they take it forward?
Yeah, so it's a very, very important question, and I would like to answer this question with a real life incident that has took place in one of our known institutions in Lucknow. I would not name that institution. Now, one of the PhD students from that institution used SPSS software, and she had been using the pirated version of the software because the licensed version of the software was not available with that institution. And she had been using the pirated version for a very long time for her thesis. Now, she had submitted her thesis when there was the final viva. In that final viva, unfortunately, the examiner who had come for her final viva of PhD, he questioned her, and I mean, she was actually stuck up with that question because neither did she have a proper acknowledgement, nor was she able to, like, she just kept on saying that I have used the software, and he kept on asking that since it's a licensed software and since your institution is not having the license, then from where have you done the analysis? And since she could not mention from that particular forum that she has been using the pirated version, so unfortunately her entire PhD got cancelled, and she could not submit her thesis. So and this is a real life incident that has happened, and we all know about it in Lucknow. So this is my advice to all of you who are here with us. Just in case your institution is not able to procure the licensed version, I'm sure anywhere in your city, or maybe wherever you are, any institution must be having the licensed version of the software. You can contact to that department. From the head of the department of that institution, you can get a letter, and in that letter, the person whosoever is the authority can give that in writing that the person has been coming to our lab and has been using our software. And for some time you can even go to that lab and maybe use the software also. Just if you have that document with you, that will be your only support whenever you have to submit a research paper or submit any thesis or article or anything. Because just in case you don't have the licensed version and you are using a pirated version of the software, you need to have a document from any place which has a proper licensed version of the software. Now, some institutions, they say that if you are using my my document, then you need to give our names in the acknowledgement. Then you have to give the names in the acknowledgement. Some say that you have to come here and work in our lab, then you will have to go there and work. But you will have to coordinate with any of the institutions or place that has licensed version of this. Only then it will be legally correct for you to sort of use that software and report that you have used that software.
But is it the same case for other software also, like maybe like Design Builder, or there are so many softwares where the researchers they do use. Even sometimes you are saying like MS Excel file and all that. Even sometimes even they are also not like a very licensed thing. So how do
Yeah, yeah. With MS Excel and MS Word, also the same thing happens. But what happens with MS Excel is that any institution would, I mean, it would have a licensed version of MS Office. At least one licensed version it would have. But with SPSS, it's not very common. Yeah,
thank you, Shambhavi. It's a very new
yeah,
thing for me. Like even for because for design and all that, definitely yes, we need those design softwares and all that. But even for research, when we use
yeah.
the softwares, then those things are really important. Thank you.
Yeah. This problem actually happens with licensed softwares because whenever you are using any licensed version of the software, make sure that either your institution has, and just in case I mean, many a times people don't bother, they don't check, and it like goes on very easily. But whenever you are stuck up, then that creates a problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our department, we have a 40 user license, and there are many departments in University of Lucknow also, which do come to us. Students, they do come to us. They take a certificate from our department, and they also sit in our lab and they practice the software also. Because sometimes, what happens is whenever you are using any pirated version, sometimes in the pirated version there are some features which are not properly available. There are some tests which are not very clearly or very or like properly available in a pirated version. So in that case, anyways, it is better that we go in for a licensed version. So yes, the students do come to our lab, they practice, they get a certificate, and then they put that certificate along, like, I mean, they use that certificate whenever it is needed. So just in case any licensed software is being used, this thing should always be kept in your mind.
Thank you.
So yeah. So now I'm using a data set so that we do understand SPSS interface and some type of analysis that could be done on SPSS. So now before I start explaining about this data and the interface, as you all can see, if my cursor is visible to all of you, this is a sign and this is a shortcut for SPSS. It is denoted by sigma, alpha, and plus. This is the shortcut for SPSS. Just like for PowerPoint, we have P. For Excel, we have this. So for SPSS, this is the software. Now, whenever we download the software and whenever we click that software, there are two windows that are open. One is called the IBM SPSS data editor window, and the other is called the output window. Now, this is not SPSS 30 version. So, whenever, like, if there are some of you who have joined us today, and like you might be interested in downloading the software from the internet. So, whenever you will download the software, it might be possible that the interface is slightly different from this interface because there might be some changes, but they are very, very, like, very meager changes. So, but still, with the latest version, there might be some changes. So, don't worry at all. The analysis and broadly the interface is very similar. So, this is a slightly older version. This is not 30 version, but I mean, if you download there, it won't be much change. So, whenever we double click on like whenever you download the software and then when you open it, you will always see that there are two windows which are opening. One is called the data editor window, as I already mentioned, and the other is called the output window. Now, always remember that your data will be visible here in your data editor window. but any analysis that we will do, that will be shown in the output window. Now, some of our students, when they practice, when they start practicing SPSS, then they do come to us maybe a day or 2 days later, and they say that we have done all the analysis, but unfortunately, we are not able to see it. The reason why you are not able to see your analysis is that all the analysis comes in a separate window. So make sure, this is for all of you again to note, make sure that whenever we do any changes with the data, that is saved in the data editor window, but simultaneously any type of analysis that we do, that is saved in the output window. Okay. Now, this is a data. This is basically a data from a school. It is a real data only, and from a college. This data has been taken. So I will explain very briefly the data set to all of you. The first column, if you see, it is the ID. In any data set, I think the first column is always the identification. Even if we go in for your architecture data, you would see that the first column is always the identifiers. So first is the ID, then we have gender, whether an individual was a male or a female, then the age, then to which group did that student belong to, whether he belonged to a morning group or the evening group. There were two groups of classes, so whether the students belong to morning or evening. Then we had their depression scores. Depression score at day 1, then depression score after 15 days, and then their depression score after 30 days. So there are three different depression scores of students, then their marks, and then FMI is the family's monthly income. So whether the family's monthly, like whether the income status of the family belonged to lower class, middle class, or higher class. And then their age was categorized into groups. So we had made certain class intervals for age. So 19 to 28, 29 to 38, and 39 and above. So then their age was categorized into class intervals, classes. Okay. I hope the data is sort of clear to all of you, at least in a very basic sense. So this is about 35 students. So this data is on 35 students. So this is a multivariate data. Why multivariate? Because it has information on many variables. Okay. Now, one thing that you all must be noticing here in this interface are these signs. I mean, some of you might have this question also, that why is there a scale made here and then there is this pie type of a figure made here, then again there is a scale, then again a pie. What does this indicate? So yes, this is very important, and to be able to understand this, let us go into the variable view of your data editor window. Now what is this? The data editor window of SPSS is broadly classified into two sections. One is the data view. This is very much like MS Excel. I'm sure all of you must have used MS Excel. So this looks very similar to your Microsoft Excel. If you click on the variable view, this gives you a detail about the variables that are there in your data set. Now, this you have to create. I will show you in today's lecture only. We do have time. So in today's lecture only, I will show you that how can we import the data to SPSS from Excel. Because Excel is one software which I think everybody must have used or will use. And what happens is whenever we have to do any survey, or whenever we have to do any analysis, what we do is we enter our data in Excel, we save our files in Excel, and then we try to import it to SPSS so that we are able to do the analysis. So many a times the students come to us, researchers come to us from different fields, and they say that we have our data in Excel. How can we import it to SPSS? So it is very important to understand. So after I explain this variable view to all of you, I will take this data only in Excel and I will show this to all of you, that how can we import our data from Excel to SPSS, so that any of you, if you have any of your data sets in Excel and you are planning to do statistical analysis using SPSS, then you will be able to import the software to SPSS, import the data to SPSS. Okay. So before we talk about importing, let us understand this variable view and why is this variable view important. Now, this variable view is basically a description of all the variables that are present in your data. So as you can see, there are 10 variables that are present here. Here also we have 10 variables. So उन्हीं का description यहाँ पे है. So there are 10 variables. Now this is the type of the variable. Now what does type mean? That whether they are numeric or they are a string. As you can see, I click here. There's a box here. So if I click here, then these are the different types of uh, variable types that are available with SPSS. It can either be numeric or it can be string or it can be date format, MMDDYY or DDMMYY, whichever format. See, as I click on date, these are the different types of formats that are available. So you can choose from any of them. Or it can simply be a string, or it can be a currency. Data can also be in the currency format. I'm sure with the architecture field, I'm sure many of you must be using the data sets where you have the price of the land or the price of the house, and it might be in some currency. So you can also specify your custom currency here, or whatever is the currency. So as and when you will be using, you will understand it more. But majorly, these two formats are used, numeric and string. So by default in our data set, all these variables are numeric format. Then we have width. Width means how many characters are you allowing for that variable. So normally, 12 is more than enough. 12 is a by default setting with SPSS. You can increase it or you can decrease it depending on your choice. So, age maximum would be 3, group would be 1, depression score would be 2, 2 numbers. So width, you can take anywhere between 4, 5, 6. It all depends on your choice. But by default, SPSS will take 12. Okay, so let it be. Then decimals. Suppose if you have like a decimal, like a data or a value that has some decimal points, then you have to also specify the decimals. Then what is label? Now, this is very important. In SPSS, variable naming has certain rules. Now, what rules? Suppose if, you see variable number 10. Here, what is written? Age underscore cat. Now, suppose if why have I put this underscore? You might have this question in your mind. Suppose if I remove underscore and if I just say age space cat. What is cat? Categorical. What is categorical? I have converted age into class intervals, right? 19 to 28, 29 to 30, and so on. So I have converted it into like categories, into class interval. That is why I have named this variable as age cat. Now, initially it was written age underscore cat. Suppose if I don't like underscore and if I remove underscore and if I just put a space here, And if I press enter, I would get a warning from SPSS that says variable name contains an illegal character. So with SPSS variable naming, there are certain rules that you have to follow. The books that I have mentioned, if you would download that books, all the rules are written there also. But even if you're not able to download that book, any book or any material that you would download from the net, they have, uh, uh, you know, uh, the basics about variable naming. But to mention some rules here, I would like to say that space is not allowed in variable naming. Variable names should not start from a numeric quantity. Okay, suppose if I write here 1 depress instead of depress 1, suppose if I write 1 depress, again it is showing that variable name contains an illegal character. Underscore is allowed whenever you have to, like whenever you have two words and whenever you have to separate the two words, you can use underscore. So that is why, due to all these rules that are there with variable naming in SPSS, that is why label is important. Label contains detailed description of the variable, and label has no such rule. Like suppose if I have to write age in categories, I can write age in category. So I have used a space also. I mean, there are no rules for labeling. So why is label important? Because whenever we name a variable, then we have to adhere to those rules. So to let go of that rules, we can use the labels. So here also I can write 1 day depression score. So I have used a space and I have also started it with a numeric quantity, right? So I hope all these columns are clear. That's the name, then you have the type, then you have width, then you have decimals, then you have the labels, and then what is value? Now, suppose if I see this variable that is gender. Now, I mean, with the architecture data also, I'm sure there will be many variables which are categorical in nature. I hope you all understand the difference between categorical and metric data or numeric. Categorical means that variables which are in categories, right? Like gender, it can only be classified. Either it would be male or female or family's monthly income or group. They are all possible of they are all like capable of being categorized. So those types of variables are called categorical variables. While on the other hand, if I say age or depression scores or marks, then all of these are numeric variables, right? All of these cannot be categorized, they are numeric. So suppose agar so if we talk about architecture data, then I can say that the price of the land, it's all in numeric form. But if I say that uh, the location, east, west, north, south, okay, broadly if I classify, then that will be a categorical variable, right? Or if I say that whether the house has centrally air conditioned or not, so it will be yes or no. So in that case it is also an example of a categorical variable. So all those types of variables which are capable of being classified are called categorical variable, while on the other hand, those variables which are numeric or quantitative, those variables or are numeric data. So coming again to the variable view, these types of variables like gender. Now, gender is an example of a qualitative data, right? Categorical. So, in case of categorical data, we use codes, right? 1, 2, or maybe 1, 2, 3, and so on. So, whenever you use coded data, that is categorical data, it is important that you clearly mention the values here. That 1 would stand for male, 2 would stand for female, and so on. So whenever we use any categorical data, it is important to mention the value. Okay, so this value will only be important when you are using a categorical data or a categorical variable. Then this missing is to specify that whether you have any missing observations. So in this case, we don't have any missing observation. So just in case you have any missing, then you have to specify this option. Then we have columns. Now what are columns? Column means the display width. So I'll just show you. So for ID, column value is 5. Okay. Let us go to the data view and let us go to the ID variable. Suppose you drag and drop. I think you all must be familiar with this drag and drop option because it is very commonly used in MS Excel. Suppose if we drag and increase the size of this column ID, and then if you go to variable view and you see, it has changed from 5 to 9. So ID, so column is nothing but how much display, how much width you want to be displayed. So by default, you can keep the default settings that are already present. You don't need to change it. Then alignment, again by default, all the numeric data is right aligned and the string data is left aligned by default. So no need to change the alignment also. All the numeric data is right aligned and the strings are left aligned. If you want to change it, then you can go to align and you can change it. But that's again your choice. Then here, this is very important. I think this is where we started our discussion about variable view. Whenever actually we talk about SPSS, variable view is something which takes one lecture on SPSS. It is like the basics of the software. So understanding the variable view is very important. So these are different types of measurement scales that are available. So how do we classify? Now, as I already said, that broadly data can be classified into two parts, categorical and numeric. Whenever we have numeric data, then the measure will be scale. This one, the topmost one. I'm repeating it once again. Whenever you have a numeric data, the measure will always be scale, like price of the land, the number of rooms, okay, number of fan. I mean, I'm just trying to relate some variables that are commonly used in architecture data, but I think you all are the masters of your subject, so you would very well like relate to the variables that I'm talking about. But all the variables which are numeric in nature, they are classified under scale category, while the categorical ones can either be nominal or ordinal. Now, what is the difference between nominal and ordinal? Suppose if I talk about gender, okay. Now, gender can only have like two categories or maybe three categories, male, female, and like third gender, or maybe not comfortable to disclose. In this case, you cannot order gender, right? You cannot order it. There is no ordering. So that is an example of nominal. I will give you another example. Like suppose if I say religion, a person could be Hindu, a person could be Muslim, a person could be Sikh, or a person could be Christian, any religion, but you cannot order the religion again. So that also comes under nominal. So for categorical variables, or qualitative variables, when ordering is not possible, right, then it comes under nominal scale. And when ordering is possible, then that is an example of ordinal scale. Now, I will give you an example of a variable that can be classified as ordinal scale. You all must have, gone to a restaurant. Whenever we go and have something in the restaurant, like most of the restaurants, they do give us a feedback form. And in that feedback, sometimes you are given a scale that whether you are highly dissatisfied with the food or you are highly satisfied or you found it neutral. So you are given a scale, or maybe when you go for a shopping, or maybe when you go to watch a movie. Even after this lecture, you might get a feedback form where you would be given to sort of rate the lecture, that whether you are highly satisfied with the talk or you are not satisfied, or whether you found it boring or whether you found it interesting. So that all that is an example of an ordinal variable. Okay, whenever you are able to classify, there are many examples of ordinal variable, but this is like one example of an ordinal type of variable where you have categories, but they are in a certain order. Okay, so I think this was all about the variable view that is in SPSS. Now the last one will by default always be input, the role column, because we enter our data. So this will by default always be input. These are different columns. So whenever we enter our data in SPSS, or whenever we import our data from, like after this, I will show you how to import, and then maybe we can run some analysis. So whenever we import any data, we have to very clearly mention the variable view also, because rightly mentioning the scales, rightly mentioning the labels, the values, the type, all of it is important when we go for the analysis. Today in this lecture, we will not be doing much statistical analysis using SPSS, but later on, whenever you will try to do any type of statistical analysis, you will understand how and why, properly mentioning the variable view is very important. Okay. Now, let me show you how to import the data from Excel to SPSS. So this is my Excel file. It is the same Excel file that I have imported. The age category variable is not present here, so that is the only difference. So I would now try to import this data to SPSS, and I will show you how we can import this data from Excel to SPSS, so that whenever you all prepare any data set in Excel, you are able to import. So if you all are not currently working on the software, I am not sure that how many of you have SPSS or how many of you are practicing. So just in case you are not practicing, please take a pen and a paper and write down the steps. This is my request to all of you. And suppose if you don't want to write down the steps, so please take the screenshots of different steps that I will be using to import the data to SPS. Okay. So how to do that? Open SPSS. Now I want to open a new SPSS file because I don't want to use import on this one. How to do that? Control and N. I'm repeating, Control and N. So if you click on Control and N together, there is a new data file that opens up. And now I would like to import my data from Excel to this SPSS interface. How to do it? Go to File, go to Open, and go to Data. So you all can note down I'm repeating it once again so that you are able to write it down, or you can take the screenshot as well. Go to File, go to Open, and click on Data. As soon as you click on Data, there is this dialog box which opens. Now, since I have been recently using this folder, SPSS Pune, this folder is already open. Now, whichever folder you will be using would be open in your systems. You can change the location from this drop down menu. I'm sure you all must be familiar with the use of Windows. So you can change the interface from here. Now I have to open an Excel file, but here it is showing the SPSS file. Now please remember, .sav is the extension of SPSS data file. You all know what is an extension. I'm sure you all would know what is an extension. So if we are working on a PowerPoint, then the extension is .ppt. Okay. If we work on a Word file, what is the extension? .docx. Can anybody tell me what is the extension of Excel file? Since it is a online lecture, so sometimes it becomes very difficult for the teacher to actually understand that whether the participants are listening or not. So if I get a response from the participants, I'll be happy. Can anybody just tell me what is the extension of an Excel file? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
So I would want the participants to answer.
They've put it in the chat box. If you can see.
Acha, they've put it in the chat box.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Excel.
So it's I'm not able to see the chat box right now, but I'm sure they must have written .xlsx.
Yes.
Yeah. So now if we have to open an Excel file, how are we going to open it? Click on the button here, and there is this option of Excel. Now these are different softwares from which you can import your file. You can import it from CSV, you can import it from Excel, you can import it from SAS, you can import a text file. These are different software interfaces from which you can import your file. So how to import it from Excel? You can click here, Excel. As soon as I select Excel, the Excel file opens up here. You can select this Excel file and you can click on Open. Now, as soon as you click on Open, there is this dialog box that opens up. And since you all must be familiar with Excel, so you would know that there are many worksheets that are present in Excel. So by default, SPSS selects the first worksheet. In my Excel file, there was only one sheet, but just in case your Excel file has, say, many sheets, then you can select your sheets from here. And you can also specify the range. Why is range important? Suppose if I want to import a subset of the data and I don't want to import the entire data. So then I have to specify the range. But in my case, I am not interested in a subset. I would be, importing the entire data. So no need of mentioning the range here. Then read variable names from the first row of data. This is again very important because, whenever you see this Excel, the variable names are by default on the first row. If you can see, by default, the first row contains the names of the variable. Sometimes first row doesn't have the name of the variable. So here you have to specify that whether your first row is having variable names or not. So by default, you can click here. It is already clicked. that your variable names are there on the first row. Just in case your variable names are not present in the first row in your Excel sheet, then you have to uncheck. Otherwise, you have to let it be checked. This is the preview of your data. Just as we have print preview, this is the preview, and it is very correctly showing all the variable names along with different data. So the preview seems to be perfect. So let us go ahead and click on OK. Now, as soon as you click on OK, your data has been imported to SPSS. Now, this is your data, and by default, it has created variable view. Now, again, by default, it has added decimal to all the observations, like just 00, but by default, it has added. Since we don't have any decimal observations, so you don't have to do anything, just put it to 0. Because whenever we import, then by default it adds decimals. But since we don't have any decimal value, so we can change it to 0. Okay. So all the decimals have been removed, and we have all these variables, and on these variables we have observation. Now what you have to do, you have to add the values, okay, for gender, for group, just as we have already done in that data. So ye thoda bahut, like some changes you have to do. I would not call them as changes, I would rather call it as data management in refined terminology. Okay, so some management you have to do, but it has imported your data, and it has also created a by default variable view. If you want to change any width, if you want to change any column, if you want to change any alignment, any measure, you can change it here. Okay, so I'm sure the importing must be clear to all of you. So I'm closing this data because I don't want to work on this data. I would be working on that data which has already been imported. Now in that data, let me show you some very basic analysis that can be done using SPSS. Very basic. Go to analyze, go to descriptive statistics, and go to frequency. Whenever we want some frequency distribution. I'm sure you all must be aware of what is a frequency distribution. Frequency distribution means that whenever we have a categorical variable, then we want to see that what is the distribution. That is, how many males are there, how many females are there, okay, or maybe and for any categorical variable, we need to see the distribution of that variable. So that can be seen using frequencies. So I will, this is a very, very basic analysis. Initially, when we were talking about descriptive statistics and inferential statistics, so frequency is one example, one very basic example of descriptive statistics. So analyze descriptive statistics and frequencies. And suppose if I want to see the frequency distribution of gender, I will put gender here. By default, it has selected display frequency table. So I don't have to click on any option that is here. Right now, I will show you these options also. But right now, I am not clicking on any of these options here. I am just putting gender from left to right. And by default, display frequency tables is already selected. So I will just click on OK. Now this is the frequency distribution table of gender. There are 17 males, which is 48.6%. Now what is valid percent? Suppose if we have missing observations, then there is a difference between percentage and valid percentage. But in our data, we don't have any missing observation. So there is no change in percentage and valid percentage. So you have frequencies, then you have percentage. So you have about 48.6% males and 51.4% females in your data. This is very basic analysis. And as you can see that this analysis is in the output window. This is your output window. And whenever we have to save the results, like save these tables, then it is very similar to how we save a Word file or an Excel file. It is very similar to that. Go to save. This is the save option. By default, it will open up a location. You can change the location and you can like name the file whatever you want to. And like suppose if I name it as architecture 12, 12. Okay. Yeah, one more thing. Always remember that the extension of SPSS output file is SPV. Just now I mentioned that the extension of SPSS data file is .sav. So the extension of SPSS output file is .spv because it's a different file altogether. That is why I'm emphasizing, because this is a very common problem that students come to us saying that we don't have any output. So that's the reason why you don't get it, because it's a separate file. So you can write it as .spv by default and you can save it. So this is how we have saved our output. Now we have our output saved. Now, after frequency distribution, let us try to find out some very basic descriptive statistics. I'm sure you all must have heard about mean, median, mode, central measures of central tendency and dispersion. I'm sure you all must have heard about it. So, very basic descriptive statistics is what I am going to show you, that how do we calculate that using SPSS. So go to analyze, go to descriptive statistics, again go to frequencies. I am not using all these tabs because then there are all advanced statistical analysis. Just for you all to understand, maybe we can like go through it once. In compare means, these are different types of inferential statistics measures that can be performed. T-test, ANOVA, just as ma'am has mentioned in the beginning of the lecture. So T-test, ANOVA, all of them could be applied using this compare means option. Then suppose if we want to calculate correlations, then we can do it from this option. Suppose if we want a regression, different types of regression, linear, logistic, all these types of regression can be performed using this option. Then there are certain multivariate techniques which are cluster, discriminant, factor. Some of you must have heard about it, some of you must have not. Don't worry, they are not very difficult. As and when we start working on it, we will be able to understand. Then there are certain non-parametric tests also, because as I said that sometimes in case of inferential statistics, it is not possible to perform parametric tests like t-test and ANOVA. In that case, we go for corresponding non-parametric tests, which are KS test and other tests. So all these non-parametric tests can also be performed using SPSS. Then there are different types of forecasting techniques, time series analysis. Then we have survival modeling. Then we have quality controls, control charts. So there are a lot of statistical analysis that can be done using SPSS. So I'm not going into all that detail. I am going into very basic descriptive statistics today. So we have already, like I've already shown how to make a frequency distribution table. Let us now see that how can we calculate mean, median and other measures of central tendency and dispersion. So go to analyze, go to descriptive statistics and go to frequencies. Now gender I will remove because it is not a numeric variable, and generally when we calculate mean, median, standard deviation and all these measures, we do it for numeric. Okay, so let me put age here in the variable section because age is a numeric variable. So let me put age here. Now I will uncheck this option of display frequency table because I don't want to display the frequency table. Now it is showing me a warning. You have turned off all output. Unless you select any output options, this procedure will not be run. This means that as of now, I have not selected any outputs. That is true. So now I'm going to select the output. So go to statistics option. Now these are the different types of, this is actually a summary of all the descriptive statistics that we normally do when we get our data. As I was mentioning in the beginning of the lecture, that whenever you go to a doctor, normally they write a series of tests. So these are all the series of tests that are performed to your data whenever we have to do any type of analysis. Okay, so I click on mean, median, mode, quartile. I hope you all know what is a quartile. Quartile divides your data into 4 equal parts. Similarly, percentiles into 10. So I am not clicking on percentile. This is basically for illustration purposes. So you all just understand that these are different options, and maybe later on when we keep on practicing, then we will understand it better. So quartiles, then we have a standard deviation, variance, range. What is range? Minimum and maximum. So otherwise also you can have minimum and maximum. Then there is this standard error also, which we can calculate, but I'm not doing it right now. Then there are also these measures of shape, which are called skewness and kurtosis. Some of you might have studied about it, but I'm not going to check it right now. So this is continue. Then let us make one chart and see how graphs are made in SPSS. So you can click on this option charts. Now, since it is a continuous data, that is numeric data, so bar and pi, both of these charts are made for categorical data. And since our data is numeric, so we make a histogram. So click on histogram. Okay. This is this is a very important thing. Whenever we have a categorical data, then we make a bar or a pi. But when our data is numeric, then we normally make a histogram. So click on histogram and click on continue. Okay. So this is all that we have done. I am repeating it once again so that you all at least know some basic statistics. In the statistics option, I have clicked on mean, median, mode, quartiles, then standard deviation, variance, minimum, maximum, and the range. And in the chart, I have clicked on histogram. And then I have clicked continue and I have clicked on OK. Now this is your output that you have got. This is your histogram. Histogram is just, I would say that graphically it represents your age. Okay, so this is just a graphical representation of age. And when we see this table, this is your basic descriptive statistics. So we have 35 valid observations, means there is no missing. Suppose if you have any missing observation, then those missing observations are written here. Then this is your mean. Mean, I think everybody knows, it is the arithmetic average. sum of all the observations divide by number of observations. Then the median is the middlemost value. So I can say that 50% observations are, like 50% students are of age less than equal to 23 and 50% are above 23. Then we have mode. So 21 is the mode. Now with mode, there is this A written here. If you see this A, it means that there are multiple modes that exist in your data. Multiple modes means that there are many values which are repeated. So mode is one measure of central tendency which is not unique. Okay, so that is why it is written here, which is okay. Then this is your standard deviation. So generally in your research papers, or maybe in any research paper that you would have referred, you would have seen that normally when we write mean, we always write it as mean plus minus SD, if you remember, right? So this is your SD. SD actually indicates the variation that is present in your data. That is how much the observations are deviated from the mean. That is represented by standard deviation. And variance is nothing but the square of standard deviation. That is also a measure of dispersion. So always remember that these measures of central tendency, that is mean, median, or mode, they are not represented in isolation. We should always accompany the measures of central tendency with the measures of dispersion. So you have a standard deviation, you have variance. Range is also a measure of dispersion. Range is the difference between maximum and minimum. And then we have the quartiles, because since I clicked on quartiles, so this is Q1, which is first quartile, which is also called 25th percentile. And then you have the middle value, 50th percentile. This is always equal to your median, divides your data into two parts. And then you have 75th percentile. So this is some very basic descriptive statistics that we can get using SPS. So I think that's all from my side about the basics of the software and its interface. We are now open for questions and discussions from all of you. I'm sorry I cannot go into much detail because in 90 minutes and with the new software, it is very difficult to go into the details. But at least I'm sure you all would have been able to understand at least the basics of the software. And maybe if you start practicing and start downloading, and if you refer to the books, then maybe you will be able to analyze the data using SPS. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much. And we are open for the questions now.
Um, you can unmute yourself and ask questions directly, or you can write your questions in the chat box and I can read them out. That also works. So I think we have two things I can see in the chat box now. Yeah. Yeah.
So could you please show correlate, and does it support weather data? Of course, it supports weather data. I have done different types of analysis using weather data also. The temperature, min, max, and mean temperature. I have used the AQI data as well. So any data it supports. Now I will show you how to do correlate. So I'm happy that from frequencies we've moved to correlate. So I'm really happy. So I'll try to find out correlation. So since I have this data open right now, so I'll try to find out correlation between age and marks. Okay. Since correlation, I'm sure you all know, is a bivariate measure. So I will try to find out correlation between age and marks. So how to do that? Go to analyze, then correlate, and then bivariate. So I'm repeating it once again. Go to analyze, correlate, and bivariate. Now, these are different types of correlation that are available with SPSS. Pearson is used when data is continuous in nature and it is normally distributed. Kendall and Spearman, both of them are rank correlations. They are used when you have ranking data or you have ordinal data. So since in our case, age and marks both are continuous and I'm assuming that they are normally distributed also. So I'll put age in the variable section and I will put marks. Okay. So two variables. You don't have to click on any option and just click OK. As soon as you click OK, this is the correlation that you have got. Now just see how quickly software does. This is actually the advantage of computers and the softwares. Manually, when we try to do all these correlations, it at least takes 15 to 20 minutes to take out the mean, the standard deviation. But as you put in the software, within seconds it is going to give you the result. So this is your correlation. If I try to interpret this result, this is the correlation coefficient 0.104. Now either you can see the first half or you can see the second. It is the same. The first is between age and marks and the second is between marks and age. So it is the same thing. So ya to we see the first half or we see the second. So we'll be focusing on the first half. And here this is the correlation coefficient. What is it? It is minus 0.104, which means there is a negative correlation. Now it is very important that we see that whether the correlation is significant or not. I am not sure if you all know about the test of significance or not, but since you've asked this question, so I'm assuming that you have some idea about the statistical testing. So here the null hypothesis is that there is no correlation. And since the p-value, this is your p-value, SIG, and since it is greater than 0.05, so we accept the null hypothesis and we conclude that there is no correlation. And it is also evident from the correlation coefficient because it is very low. So our data indicates that for these 35 observations on age and marks, there seem to be no statistically significant correlation between age and marks. Okay. I hope this doubt is clear. Ketiki, I think she's, no, Charlene has asked this question. Yeah, thank you. Do we have any other question from any other participant? I hope I was able to, I hope the lecture was not boring.
No, no. I think since, as you said, the time that we have time constraints, it, we could not actually get into many of the more interesting functions. But yeah, what can we do in 90 minutes other than this? But it was very, I mean, for people who do not know statistics at all, also, you've been very, you took us to step by step through all the processes so that we'll not make mistakes, like from extensions of files to where to get things from. That way, it was very good, I should say. Thank you so much. And it was a very patient presentation.
Yeah. Shambhavi, I'm just curious to know, like nowadays AI is used everywhere, like, like even the design point of view and sometimes even the literature review and all that. So is there any way even the AI is used for this statistical analysis also?
Yes, of course, AI is used in a statistical analysis also. It is not used in SPSS. We don't have the the Chat GPT version of SPSS right now. But yes,
Okay.
I think yeah, I mean the way AI is used in statistical analysis is that normally whenever we do any type of advanced statistical analysis, then we do use the cloud based data sets that are available and some cloud based models that are available. So in that sense, yes, we can try to integrate this. Yeah.
Great. Great, great. But again, as you said rightly, 60 or 90 minutes is not at all enough to even understand what is SPSS is all about. Application is a very difficult because I myself, when I did almost 10 days workshop on only SPSS, but still and that was a very beginning of the research, and that time I didn't had any data. And then when I had a data, and the 10 days of experience was even not enough to even start, and unfortunately I couldn't even start with the SPSS using as a tool. But yeah, it is not sufficient. This is not even to know what is SPSS is all about. The application takes, it's we should have a data, and we should know like what is that we want it, and then only I think we have to use these kind of a tools. Then somewhere I think we will apply to one or the other analysts. Otherwise, I think definitely it's not the easy one to understand in a short period of time.
Yeah, I do agree with what you've said. Actually, what happens is when we have a case, like a case study or a data, and then when we have a set of questions on that data,
Yes,
then
yes.
it's very good because people normally relate to it very quickly. So maybe later on, when we do have some understanding of the software, maybe then we can have a case study and work on that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe, and also there are a lot of researchers who are attending this, and maybe if you permit, we can also share your number, because especially in architecture, we do face a lot of these statistical analysis, because we know what is mean, medium, and everything, but we don't know which one to apply to, justify our statement. So that is where we almost most of us stuck. Hope the scholars who are attending today's session may contact you for which, especially which test has to be used for this kind of a data.
Yeah, you can share my mail IDs with them. Maybe they can send me a mail and I can like respond to
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Any other question from the participants? Yeah, I'll share the her email ID. Yes, I'll do that. Along with the feedback form, I'll do that. Yeah. Right, ma'am. I don't think we have any other question. Yeah. So I think we can wrap this up now. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for taking time out from your schedule. Thank you so much. I think, yeah, that's it from our side.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Shambhavi.
yeah.
Thank you.